Welcome back to this latest episode of Japan's Top Business Interviews. I'm your host, Dr. Greg Story, President, Dale Carnegie, Tokyo Training Japan. Special guest today is an old friend of mine and a graduate of our training as well, Tony Aram. Tony, welcome. You are the Managing Director of Collectors Universe Japan, and you've got some paraphernalia here. So maybe people may not know what Collectors Universe does. So why don't we start with a little quick explanation of what you actually do, and then we'll get into your background in leadership. So should we start there?
Yeah, firstly, Greg, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity today to come here and talk about myself, talk about a little bit about my business. Really honored to be here. So
Great
very
pleasure
excited to be
you.
here.
Thank you for coming.
And great to be back again at Dale Carnegie.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you.
Yes, about the business I'm in a business company called Collectors Universe Japan GK. The business name is PSA Japan. Our parent company is in California. It's been around from 1986. And first it started out by, actually, you can see here, coin and notes. So our company started out by authenticating and grading notes and coins from 1986.
People who collect
currency.
They want to know that the currency they've bought is real Macquarie, not a fake. So where do you go to get that authenticated? And if you want to sell it, the person buying it from you needs to know this is the real Macquarie.
Yeah, we actually do not buy and sell.
No, you don't. But the people who are getting it authenticated,
people will go and they get it authenticated. They go to a kind of a coin hobby shop to buy and sell, or they could sell it on eBay, for example. So when they sell on eBay, people will know that this has been authenticated by Collectors Universe.
Right. Okay.
And so in 1991, this coin authentication business, which is called PCGS, has been very successful. Professional coin grading service was very successful. So in 1991, they started authenticating baseball and non-sports cards in the U.S. So PSA, Professional Sports Authenticator, is the name of the business. Started in 1991, and then in 1996, then they started authenticating autographs as well. As you can see, here's an Ichiro.
Ichiro baseball. Wow,
Ichiro baseball.
Fantastic.
And so if you have it, you can actually have it authenticated like in there. So this would be like this. And after that, they expanded into authenticating other stuff like tickets. So I have here
collector's items.
Yes, baseball tickets. So
basically, I'm from Australia, so we don't really have a big, well, maybe we do today because I haven't lived there for so long. I've been here for so long, but I didn't grow up with baseball cards or rugby player cards or anything like that. So we didn't have that culture at that time. In America, I know it's huge. But what about Japan? Is Japan a sort of a collector's paradise?
Very, very good question. What we're finding in here is that in the United States, it used to be about 80% of people who submitted cards were sports cards, and about 20% were non-sports. And non-sports, I mean like Batman, Spider-Man, and Pokemon, and Hollywood cards, and so on. But in Japan, we've actually opened up the subsidiary in 2018, July. And since then, we found that most of the submission, about 90% and more, are Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! And game cards.
So let's talk about that. As I understand it, the company didn't exist in Japan. You saw an opportunity. You reached out and said, hey, we should open in Japan and I should be the guy running it. Is that not how it worked? That's how I call our conversation, right?
Correct.
So you spotted an opening in the market. And how many people are working in the company today in Japan?
In Japan, currently we have over 100 people.
That's incredible. If since 2018 to now, you've got 100 people. Our company's been going since 2018. We don't have 100 people, so you've done very well. Congratulations. And talk about that a little bit, because you start with concept. That's one thing. And you had an intuition or a feeling that there was a business here, but you have to convince people to join you. You have to recruit people to come into the business to start from scratch. you get the rights from America, that's one thing. But to actually, and then you've got to have a presence in the market here that people know that, okay, this is the real thing. This company's legitimate. There's a hell of a lot of work goes into that. So how did you go about convincing people to join in a brand new operation? And you didn't have a background in this business. You had a finance background before that. So again, you're coming from a different sector. And I'm a Japanese person. I'm thinking, well, why don't I stick with, my big Japanese company, which is like safe and sound, and my parents like it, my grandparents like it. And this Tony Aram guy with this brand new business sounds risky. My parents don't like it. My spouse doesn't like it. My grandparents don't like it. I'm not going to join. So that's a very common experience for a lot of foreigners here in trying to do a startup. But you've done extremely well in such a short space of time to overcome all those difficulties. So how did you do it?
Well, firstly, I had to convince the U.S. office to start the operation here. But going one step before that, I think one needs to have passion in what you're doing. That is very important. The reason why I started this business is because I was always looking for an opportunity. I've been working in the finance industry about 20 years in Japan, working for various international banks and also Japanese banks as well.
And you grew up in Japan. You spent how many years altogether in Japan now?
I've spent about 45 years in Japan and 15 years in Australia. I've worked for Pricewaterhouse and KPMG. I helped set up Japanese companies in Australia back in the 1990s. And then I came...
Good old days of the boom?
Yes, that's right.
It's all happening?
And then I came to Japan and I was working... my background is an accountant. And I was always working for management reporting and financial reporting, doing reports to management, shareholders. And when I was about 50, I said to myself, the
excitement's too much. I can't take it anymore.
When I look back, I wanted to feel like this is what I achieved in life. This is a footprint I have made in life. Or I want to be able to say to my daughter or my grandchildren eventually is, this is what your grandfather has done and what he's achieved. But I thought I couldn't say that working in the investment banks because they would find it very difficult to understand. And I thought it was very difficult to explain that to them. So I was looking for opportunity and I came across this. People collect things in Japan, like they love baseball, Pokemon group started. So I thought there was an opportunity here. So I went to US. They brought out a due diligence team. They tested the market. And most important thing is due diligence. When you want to start a business here, do due diligence. And the key is to speak to the customers and also vendors about the opportunity here. And that's where I started. Starting in 2018, I was a one-man band, basically, trying to promote this product. These kind of card grading was unheard of. There are people...
So in Japan, if you'd bought a card or some type, Pokemon card or whatever, you had no way of authenticating that for an on-sale to someone else. No. People have to trust that it wasn't a fake card, a dubious card. That must have been... It's interesting that hadn't been created in Japan to overcome that, because Japanese are so risk-averse, to overcome that fear that hadn't sort of emerged, but you actually had to bring in from the States.
Yes, actually, there were two other times before where grading companies came to Japan.
Oh, they had?
And they tried it. There was once in 2000 they came, and at that time what they tried to do is they thought, okay, we will get to work on one of the card shops in Japan, make them as a partner, and let's see how it goes. But it didn't work out, and I think it's because that the partner had other interests and they wanted to sell cards and not grading, not authentication. So the interest was not theirs by the local partner. So that kind of broken out. Second time around was around 2016.
This is a same company or a different company?
Actually, it was PSA.
Where this is the third time lucky for them.
No, this is second time.
Second time lucky.
There was another different company came in 2016.
Right.
And that time, they hired a Japanese person in Texas as a Texas company, and they flew him over every quarter and tried to do sales and promotion. And then he would go back to Texas and he would come back. So they thought that would work, and that didn't work.
Didn't work either, right?
And so what I told the management is, if you want to try to persuade the customers you need to be close to the customers, and you need to set up an operation here in Japan. You need to set up an entity.
You need an office. You need a shingle. You need something people can check on and kick the tires and build that trust. Otherwise, this vague Texas commutation is not going to work, right?
And building trust is really the key. And to build trust, you need to be able to speak with your customers. You need to be able to listen to your customers.
So who are the customers for you guys? Is it the card shops? Is it the individuals? Is it both? Is it?
It's both.
So it's B2C and B2B?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes, they're both. Okay. And first, the customers, I mean, they were cautious and they tried us out. But I knew this was going to be more of not a short-term, but a long-term business. So
that's the point. You talked before about passion, right? And you're talking long-term. So I'm a potential employee. This business doesn't exist in Japan. It's failed twice, and you're the third time, right? And so I'm responding to some recruiter or an advertisement, or somehow I find out about your company and I meet you. And so you're transferring this passion to me about this potential, right? So what did you find really resonated well with getting people to take on this risky new startup that didn't exist in Japan until recently?
To be honest, we've only started hiring full-time employees only till I think about about 2000, last year, last year.
2023?
2023, last year.
Okay. So everyone else is part-time before that?
Before it was part-time. So
you keep your risks low.
That's right. Because as you are fully aware, in Japan, it's very risky. It's very difficult to let go someone, especially full-time staff.
Yes.
So what I did was I took on temps. With temps, in Japan, what I found was they are very highly motivated and really kind of hardworking staff in the market.
And you're not paying for their travel to go to work. You're not paying for their insurance costs, their pension. All those additional costs, which add up quite a bit of dough on top of base salary for a full-time employee, is just a per hour rate, right? So
it's a per hour rate, but it's kind of added into the agency fees.
The agency takes a fee, of course.
Yes. So it's probably all included in there, but it gives us an opportunity to test out the temp. Yep. And if the temp is good, we will then eventually convert her to full-time. Right. And also him or her. But also it gives an opportunity for the temp to see our company, to see our operation, and to see how the operation is going. So that they can make a move. And so last year now, we had about 25 people at this time of last year, which of that, about 20 were temps, and all of them are still with us today. I think currently when I hire full-time employees, what I tell them is that do you want to create a legacy? Do you want to say to you, and same thing what I just said before.
Just on that point though, I mean, you're extending your own rationale as an attraction for these people. Does that actually work? Because, I might have extraordinary interests and, passion about things, but, the people who work here, they're not driven by what I'm driven by. I have to always be very conscious about each person individually has got maybe different motivation, different requirements, different needs. And anytime I'm phrasing something in terms of what this company does, I'm trying to match it. I'm just wondering, because taking your rationale and broadcasting that rationale to them, that seems to me to be quite a difficult thing to do because, what number of people are going to have the same rationale as you? Or just as you took that path, why did you think that would work?
Well, these days with social media is incredible. I utilize social media. That's how the business expanded to the customers. My marketing budget was zero.
Right.
I didn't spend anything on any advertisement, nothing. Today, we have 99% of the market share in Japan.
99% of the market share since 2018.
Yeah, in the US, PSA has the market share as well. They have like more than 80% market
share. So they're
share.
very strong there, aren't they?
So one thing is the brand. Brand is also very convincing to people coming in, and knowing that the brand in the US has a very strong brand. Secondly, checking the Instagram looking at X, to hearing what the customers are talking about PSA, what about their experiences that they're having about PSA, and also looking at the amount of cards in the market expanding. Also, the statistics as well helps. Looking at the Toy Association statistics. Now, if I can talk a little bit about statistics here.
Go ahead. Lies, damn lies, and statistics. Isn't that the expression, right?
The Toy Market Association in Japan, the actual, they've started their statistics from 2001, but from 2006, there's been a rising trend in the toy market. However, as we all know, the birth rate in Japan is declining, but the toy market is going up. I think
so. Less kids who have more toys.
Yeah, and the people who are buying toys are adults now.
Adults.
Yes.
This country worries me sometimes. I've got to tell you.
The actual it's a sorry, if I get my statistics right. I think it's a 953 billion yen market right now.
That's big. 953
billion yen market, and I'd say, and this is in 2022. I expect in 2023 it'll be over 1 trillion yen, of which 25% is Pokemon and the TCG cards. Right
TCG,
now.
What's TCG?
Sorry, TCG is trading card game. These are Yu-Gi-Ohs and Pokemon cards.
Is this okay? This is like a game where you win, you get to get other people's cards. Is that type of thing?
Yeah.
It's like the Japanese game of Go, where you get the stones.
Correct. It's becoming like a social gathering. It's becoming like people when they play mahjong, for example.
Oh, yeah.
Or they come in, again, overseas, they play chess.
Yes.
So you go to a little game shop and you play a game with someone you totally don't know, but you actually kind of meet friends, make friends.
Yeah, really, okay.
And it's a kind of a
aspect to it.
social gathering place.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
And so right now where people are becoming more kind of silo, should I say, at home. But these places become kind of more socializing places. And that's where also is one of the popularity for people to play cards. But anyway, right now, Pokemon cards started in 1996, whereas baseball cards, they've been around since late 1800s.
Is that right?
Yeah, so
that old?
Over 100-year history with baseball cards, whereas Pokemon, less than 30 years. And it's just recently that there are collectors coming out, starting to collect Pokemon cards because they feel nostalgic, bit of nostalgia. And so all of this is kind of gathering excitement. And so people who come to our company, one thing I mentioned to them is that our company is very unique. I've never worked for a subsidiary like this in Japan. What I mean is we are self-funding. We actually have only amount that we borrowed is when we set up our first initiative, for the share capital of the company, and also the first office deposit.
So, I mean, you don't have to go into this detail if you don't want to, but are you the PSA owns the company.
100%.
You have a subsidiary, you run the subsidiary in Japan as opposed to Tony Aram owns a piece of the action here.
Yes. We are a 100% subsidiary of Collectors Universe Inc., which is the U.S. parent company, which does all of this.
So
in Japan, we only do
cards.
cards.
You didn't try to get them to give you a piece of the action in Japan? You know, they can have 95-year-5 or something like that when you kicked it off here?
I was very more passionate of wanting to grow the business, wanting to have a footprint in the market. Maybe I should have, but I was more interested. I was passionate about the business here, and I was very confident about this will grow. So that was kind of my motivation. And also the other thing motivated me was every time I go home and I looked at X, I always felt I was being evaluated by customers every day.
Really?
Because I see their comments and I hear good things, bad things. And when I hear bad things, I listen and I try to improve.
Well, if it's an authentication process, what's the bad thing about that? You know, they've got a card and you say, yes, it's authentic, or you say, no, it's not authentic. I guess if they hear they've bought a fake card or a dud card, they blame the messenger here. They shoot the messenger, is it? That PSA is terrible. They give me a bad evaluation. My card's worth zero. I spent a lot of money on that. Is that the sort of feedback which is negative?
Sometimes it's the delay. It took long.
Time to authenticate.
The time took too long, or there's some scratches on the case.
Scratches on the case.
Yeah, because these are acrylic. They're kind of easy to scratch.
Yeah.
Or sometimes they say that the fee is too expensive.
Right. Okay.
Or Tony Aram hasn't responded back, which very rare. Because that's another part I focused here is when if anyone's listening, when you're opening up a new business in Japan, customer is the key. Customer is really important, and that's where I kind of focused, making sure that I made sure that I responded quickly. And
so you are really the face of the operation.
Yes.
For the customer.
Yes, that's right.
They don't identify with PSA Japan as a company. It's Tony Aram is PSA Japan, and Tony Aram answers my tweet, or Tony Aram puts something on social media from Tony Aram representing PSA. Is that very personalized?
With social media, I got help from the US, so there was someone there putting up information.
Okay. Sort of broad spectrum type of postings. Okay.
But it's when people come and drop off their cards, or when they come to the office to ask, how do I fill in this form? Or when they send an email to me, or when they telephone call. It was really 24/7 I was working the first 2-3 years, just 24/7, because I was the only person working here. So I knew that I was also trying to promote the PSA brand, but in a way I was promoting my own brand as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I was trying to, if people don't have trust in me, they won't have trust in PSA. So now
that's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, Tony. This is, I'm thinking, wow, that's a lot of personal responsibility on your shoulders as a company representative.
At the end,
and you're still married happily, so that's an amazing achievement in itself, right?
My wife wasn't happy when I asked her, can I swap the master bedroom with the second bedroom and make the master bedroom into the office? She wasn't happy about that. But
I understand that.
But but I also got my wife's help as well. She helped me some of the packaging as well.
Okay.
But also, the thing I was very lucky about, fortunately, was COVID.
Yeah.
Because with Pokemon games, you have to go into shop and play.
Yes.
Maybe also like chess as well. You have to. But with COVID, it was remote. You had to be at home. And so a lot of the gamers, they couldn't play the game anymore. So they started looking at cards, and they had more free time. And that's when they said, we can get my card authenticated. And they had more time to study about our product. And so I was very fortunate that, just like with any other companies in the hobby market, it was actually the COVID was a boom time for us.
Wasn't a boom time for the training business, I can tell you. I'm glad to hear it was a boom time for somebody.
So I was very fortunate with that. So that really helped our business grow. Yes.
So, you've got, anytime you're running a large number of people in an organization, and particularly if they're part-timers, as you said, Japan has got a certain flavor to it that is different maybe from the West, and you do get a lot of people take it very seriously, and they're very loyal, etc. But, they're part-timers. They're not full-time employees. And in Japan, there is definitely a stratum, I'm full-time, you're part-time. It's a stigma, right? It's like, I'm better than you. I'm more secure than you. And so there's always that issue. So what did you find worked well to engage part-timers to really work hard in the company, follow you as the leader?
Well, firstly, providing clear instructions to them and guidelines of when they come in, what are they really expected to do?
Do they work in the office or they work from home? Or?
They work in the office.
They actually physically come to the office?
Office, yeah.
Okay, right.
And give them clear instruction that you are dealing with customer cards, and these are expensive cards. Just to let you know, the most expensive Pokemon card was sold in 2021 over $5 million US.
$5 million US?
Yes. That's the most expensive. So we're not talking about 10 cents, 20 cents.
Anybody out there who's got a bunch of Pokemon cards under the rug or something, and break those babies out. Could be a fortune sitting there.
And customers who send cards to us, those cards are worth like $100,000, $20,000 cards coming in. So I tell my temps, make sure that you handle them very carefully, package them very carefully.
So wearing white gloves?
Of course, white gloves, masks, yeah.
Wow,
and also how do you package them?
Yeah.
And if there's one card, how you package one card? If there's 100 cards, how do you package 100 cards?
Yeah.
And what size of boxes they go in? What kind of tape we put in? How do you tape it? So
it's quite regimented, I should say, quite regimented, which you can teach people. It's a bit like an assembly line. Okay, do this step, this step, this step, step.
Yes.
They've got to learn that, right?
Yes.
So I guess in that sense, the upskilling can be done fairly quickly.
Yes.
But what about that's about precision. Now, in my experience, and we see this back in the 60s with the electronics industry, that the Japanese touch, the Japanese dexterity with the hands and doing very delicate things with their hands, very, very advanced. And that's why most of that stuff was built in Japan in those days, because they've got that attention to detail, very dexterous, great control. And so all those things add up, right? So that packaging and taping, I can get that. So you're underlining for them the importance of this is a $5 million card we're talking here, take care of it. That's one thing. What other things you found worked well to get them engaged with you and the company to support what you're doing?
Also trust in me as well. I think the other important thing is that because I was their leader and also, well, I had more expertise, and so that they can rely on me. So I think to show them that I know what I'm doing, and that if a customer kind of telephones in and is complained, that I'm someone there to handle it. It's not them handling it; I can handle it.
So you're the complaints department as well.
But yeah, and
still,
not anymore because I now have customer support team as well.
Pleased to hear that.
So. Yeah, and the size of the business is significant now. So, which we are.
If you can name figures, go ahead, but you don't have to. It's up to you.
No, we are.
Are you a public company?
No, not.
Okay.
Yeah, we used to be, but then we've been bought up by. We were bought up, and I don't know. I hope we'll be a public company again.
Okay.
In the future. But now we're also part of a significant contribution to the group in Japan.
Well, if you've got 99% market share of a country this rich, which has got a collector interest, that's impressive. So, okay, so what other things are helping people to become engaged in their work that you found works well?
I think it's also recognizing their hard work as well. So when the team has done well, we would... we would have a small little kind of, I'll get some cakes and have an afternoon tea.
Yep.
And so that they feel that they're being appreciated and that their hard work is being recognized.
Yep.
So I felt that was also very important. Like they would work back sometimes. Also, if give them expectation as well. If you want them to work back late a certain night, don't tell them, I want you to work. You have to work back late tonight. No, I would say I think we would have to ask for you to put in the hours. Maybe this coming Friday, if that's okay. Anyone who can do it, please help us. And normally I find most of the staff and temps would stay back.
As you say that, because in my experience with people who are working in companies who are sachet and they're full-time employees, they manufacture their own overtime because they have a set pay, and Japanese pay is not that high. You don't get bonuses much here, incentives much here, because the bonus is actually a delayed salary payment, which you get in summer and winter as a set. Everyone gets the same thing anyway, So salaried employees in Japan in the past have found out, I can actually increase my take-home pay by working overtime. So there's a incentive to take, Parkinson's law. The work expands to fit the time rather than doing it in a very concrete, effective, efficient manner. And so also I imagine the same if I'm a part-time employee. If I want to get paid more, unless there's some incentive for being efficient, I'm going to take longer. And therefore I'll make instead of 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day. And you say, hey, you've got to work back. Great, I'm going to make more money. So how do you like here, for example, knowing this, and having worked at other companies who are seeing this, anyone wants to work overtime, they have to apply for it, and I have to approve it, before they can work overtime. It's just not you decide yourself. So there is the danger there that people work slowly to make Parkinson's law come true and make the work expand to fit the time, rather than getting it done in a shorter space of time. So how do you compensate for that?
So what I did and these are temps, and the temps are basically hired from our working hours from 9 to 6. So
it's fixed.
It's fixed. But being an accountant, I like to control and monitor.
Okay.
So I got them to fill in the spreadsheet and say, how many cards have they packaged today? So each one, if I had 10 temps, and all temps would actually write down, so every hour, how many cards have they actually packaged? So they write down, and also I make it transparent for them to also see others as well. So they could also benchmark themselves to see, okay, how do I compare with others? So in a way, I try to make them compete and also understand where they are.
Reminds me of, you spent 15 years in Australia, the gun shearer, the shearer who shears the sheep in a shearing shed. They've all got same limited amount of time, same sheep, same equipment, but some shearers are much quicker in getting through more sheep, and they're paid per sheep in the shearing sheds. Or I'm thinking of, I think I've got this right, the king of steel making in America, Andrew Carnegie, was famous that one of the steel mills, one of the shifts wasn't working as well as the other shifts in terms of the amount of production. And he just got some chalk and wrote down how much they produced in that shift. And the next shift came up and found there were so many units being produced. I said, what's this? Oh, Andrew Carnegie was here and he wrote down what's this previous shift. Well, we can do better than that. Suddenly the productivity went up. So that's interesting. So you can actually track the productivity.
And after that, what I did was the ones who were fast workers, I empowered them to become leaders.
Right.
So then they became leaders, and they started training those people, new people who came in, to train them and assist them as well.
Right.
So then I also started to have support as well.
Right.
So and also the people, those people who work fast, they can feel like, okay, they're doing something a little bit different with before. And that slowly kind of developed. And now those leaders right now are full-time employees. Again, provides them with motivation. Incentive for...
There's a career plan there.
Yeah, that's right. So that's advancement. So I think for employees to see that working for this company, that there's advancement, that they can progress, is also something that kind of persuades them to actually stay on.
It sounds like they're all women. Is that correct?
Correct. I'm kind of biased towards women. I mean, not in the wrong way. Don't take me in the wrong way. But it's just I've worked in Japan and for also many different companies. But I find there's management is predominantly male, and companies tend to hire male than female. And I myself want to give opportunity to really good female workers, and I want to give them a chance and career. And I want PSA to be that. So that is one thing I really want to try to do is give opportunity to women. And I was surprised some of the temps, because when you actually hire temps in Japan, you can actually do an interview.
The agency just says
you
got Suzuki over here, and that's it.
And you have like a they call a office not office inspection, but office tour.
Yeah.
And they come in and they see the office,
check the environment.
Yeah, and then you have a little chat with the person coming in, and that chat is where gives you an opportunity to say, okay, yeah, she's in, or no, can get someone else. So you have chance to ask questions.
They could do the same thing. They can say, well, I don't want to work here, or I do want to work here. So it's both ways.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Yeah.
But they don't give you can't see the resume.
Right.
You don't know what kind of qualification they have.
Well, that's interesting. Now, I mean, we've got our head of administration on maternity leave now. I just had the baby, and we've got a temp staff here replacing her. And I got the resume. We had an interview. He got to come. He was sitting right where we are now in the office, and he got to check it out. So maybe it's by agency. It's a little bit different. I don't know.
Well, speaking with these agencies I spoke to, they know I got like kind of a brief kind of resume style. It just talks about how many years this person has worked in what kind of job, like a supermarket, but it doesn't mention about university degrees
or anything.
No.
Okay, I got the same thing then.
It doesn't mention. It's very brief.
Yeah, very well. Yeah.
But when I actually hired them as full-time employees, I found out, wow, these people have really good degrees, graduate school in law, for example, and they were temps.
Wow.
And so I was surprised, because this was also convincing I had to do to US as well. When I told my parent company, I'm going to be hiring temps to support me. I said, temps?
Yeah.
Because apparently their image of temps in the US quality is different with Japan.
Different, yeah.
But now they understand that temp quality in Japan is
very high.
Higher than the US. And also, I'm very happy to be able to provide that opportunity to these people to give them a chance. And that's why we have a lot of female staff. And we also have male temps as well. So I'm not just hiring, I'm just hiring people who we think is suitable for us.
If you want to be successful as a leader, do the Leadership Training for Managers course. All companies need people who can both manage and lead. Leading people screams out for real skills in communication, dealing with all different types of people, being excellent at innovation, planning, delegation, handling mistakes, doing performance reviews really well, and inspiring and motivating the team. Do the Leadership Training for Managers course now in either Japanese or English. Are you doing business with Japan? Do you really know how things work? Japan Business Mastery provides the answers. Do you have the right networks and know how to create them? Do you know how to get on the same wavelength with Japanese buyers? Do you know what being trustworthy looks like from the Japanese perspective? Japan Business Mastery is based on more than 30 years' experience in Japan and will become your go-to guide. Want to succeed in Japan? Buy Japan Business Mastery now. Well, you've got to have high attention to detail. You've got to have dexterity. You've got to have sense, common sense. And you've got to be able to follow instructions, So I think that's something that, in general speaking, in Japan, people are good at. I often use the example that I came out of a subway station one rainy, bitterly cold winter's day down in Yurakucho. And there's this poor woman standing out in the cold with an umbrella, handing out little packets of tissues to every punter coming out of the subway. And I was thinking to myself, wow, if they'd been Australia, they would have dumped the whole bloody box of tissues somewhere and gone to the pub. They wouldn't have that loyalty or that commitment or that painstaking, patience to do it. The Japanese couldn't do it.
And the other thing also with motivating temps as well, or could be full-time employees, is that I take caution on who I take in. Because if I take in a wrong person, my staff will blame me and say,
Yeah.
why did you bring that entire person? So
Well, look at these steps. You're going to send them back.
I can do that, but still,
It's not easy.
I want to try to because I would train them. My temps would, and they would train them as well. But they don't want to waste their time training someone who's not competent. So that was a challenge, and I was very careful on who I bring into the organization. Because I mean, I was basically start a company, but I was also starting up an industry as well. So
yes, that's true.
And
not just a company,
and I was starting a startup industry, and everything I do, I was setting the industry standard.
Wow.
So packaging boxes, that became the industry standard.
Wow.
The price setting I put in.
Well, if there's a 99% share of the market, there can't be too many competitors out there.
At that time, it was 0%.
Right.
There were not hardly. Well, I would say 100%. Maybe there might be like 10 people who did grading cards, but it's just it's just when I mentioned about marketing, it's the most convincing part of customers wanting to send cards to us. It's not Tony Aram saying, send the cards to PSA. We're a great company. Our brand is great in the US. That doesn't work. It's the word of mouth from other collectors.
Right.
And X.
So it's influencers, basically.
That's right.
Having a big impact.
That's right. And that had a big impact on us.
And what about in terms of getting ideas? Now, you were 7 days a week, 24 hours a day at the start, doing everything, creating everything. You see, not only creating a company, you're creating an industry. Yeah. But at some point, you're a busy guy. And as the scale gets bigger, 100 people is 100 people, whether they're temps or full-time staff, that's a lot of people. And they're in the office every day. So there's a lot going on there. So you cannot have that same degree of touch that you had before. And also, in terms of innovation, because you're creating an industry and things change and things move, often when we're the leader, because we're plugged into the headquarters in the USA, we're plugged into the world in English, we've got the experience more than everyone else, our ideas tend to dominate. We tend to have a lot of ideas. And one of the dangers is that we forget that actually they, who are working for us at the sort of coalface, at the cutting edge of things, have got ideas too. But we forget to ask them because we've got full of our own ideas. It's like a big avalanche of our own ideas and don't ask them. So what have you found works well to get ideas from people in the team as opposed to you producing all the ideas yourself?
What we do right now in the companies, we have a monthly newsletter.
Okay.
We have an internal newsletter that goes out to all employees. And what I find important is, because I've worked for foreign companies, and what I found was sometimes working for a foreign company in a subsidiary in Japan is kind of an entity away from the head office. And you sometimes don't understand what is happening in the head office. And sometimes the Japanese people working in the subsidiary or local people working in the subsidiary felt that they weren't in the group.
They feel disconnected.
That's right.
Okay.
And I didn't want that to happen in Japan. So with newsletters, I informed them of what's happening in the head office, so that all the news and all the information is communicated. And with that as well, I provide an opportunity for them to ask questions, feedbacks, or what do they want to hear next month, or what are some things that we can improve as a company going forward. We have a box we have a kind of a cafe space. We have a box there, so for employees to allow them to put in ideas and or things that need improve on or any complaints. So we also give. So we try to give as much opportunity so that there could be communication to HR. So if they don't want to communicate to the manager, they have the secret box that they can put in that comes to me.
And for that type of thing, one of the elements of that is fine. You got the box, you got the ideas. What happens, A, how do they know that their idea was taken seriously? B, how do they know the idea was acted upon? And so what's your formula for actually getting that feedback? Do you have town halls where you go through, here's the 10 top ideas we're picking up, or here's a range of ideas that people fed into the system, or here's some innovation we're going to take on board based on the feedback we got? Because one of those dangers is it's in the box, but it stays in the box, and who knows what the hell happened after that. You've got to connect it with an outcome. So what works best for that?
If we're able to respond back to the person, if the person has put in a name, we'll respond back. But most of the cases, it's anonymous.
Right?
So if it's a good idea, we announce it in the next newsletter, or we do a kind of we try to do a quarterly town hall as well. So we try to share that information to them, we try to be as conversant as possible. And that part, we try to we try to be as conversant to the staff as much as possible.
Right. So a lot of communication.
And also the other part I think is important, which I try to do, is care to the Japanese. I mean, Japanese employees, they're different with Western employees, where they see a company as more of a long term. They see as a long term commitment when they join a company.
To me, often I think it's probably more like old style European English companies where you're part of the family.
Yes.
The owner, the founder is like the patriarch, and they're like children for that person. They treat them not as employees, but like, part of the family type of thing. Which I don't think America, if they ever had that, treats people like that. It's, it's much more business-like, profit-driven, quarterly reviews of results, in the market. It's brutal in many ways. Fire all the staff and then give yourself a massive big, millions of dollars pay rise. It's like, whoa, okay. That's America. So Japan's not like that, is it? And so I think it's probably more of that. We're a group here. We're supportive. It's like a So I say family, but that's too much of a stretch. But it's similar to that, isn't it?
So that's why employees, their expectations are different with overseas. They expect the company to provide training, career development, to show care. That is, and on the other hand, they will also provide loyalty and commitment and hard work is what they're permitted. And
on their side.
And so there's kind of a two-way part. I know you mentioned about companies, they work long hours, but it's really time to clock the hour. But I don't think that's the case as well. I've seen that happen. But also I've seen cases where companies are staying back because it's a sign of care. What I found once with and this was it blew me out was first time I worked for a Japanese bank, and we had to submit reports to the U.S. SEC, and it had to be signed by the CFO. CFO was there, head of tax was there, head of management reporting was there, head of treasury was there, and their number two were all there, and that's because the CFO was there waiting to sign this report. No one's leaving. And that's because
in case something has to be done.
Yeah, and that's kind of a camaraderie that they can all go, and even the CFO can go home and say, look, you can send me a fax and I'll sign the fax and send. But he's there because he knows that the regulatory reporting team are there working. So he feels him being there is a sign of care and support. So just being there, and all the other people who are not part of the regulatory team, like tax, they're there not because the CFO's there, but they're also there to support the regulatory team because they know this report is a very important report. And I had the goosebumps because I was the regulatory team, and we were there. The deadline was 2 a.m. in the morning, and we got that in like 12:30 in the morning to get out. But I thought this wouldn't happen in a Western company. I didn't think.
More rational.
Yeah.
Who really needs to be here?
So, yeah.
Yeah, minimum requirement.
So, yeah, one way you could say it's a waste of time. It's not efficient. But the other side is it's a respect and it's care to your staff.
Also team orientation too, isn't it? We're one big team here. We're supporting each other.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing.
Yeah.
In terms of building trust, like, you talked before about some very careful selection of the people so that you don't have any sort of toxicity in the organization and people blame you for you chose that person. Not good fit, right? Being temps, they can be sent back. So that's one thing to get rid of them. But in terms of also, when you're starting an industry as well as a company, and you talked before about recruiting to get people to believe in the passion and, the potential and that sort of thing. And you talked about care. Anything else you found works well to build trust with the team?
I think communication was really the key part of it, but also, explaining about what is happening may not be relevant to their day-to-day work, but I also letting them know. I mean, they were temps, but also letting them know what's happening in the U.S., what's happening in the industry, some of the things that I'm working on, and also listening to them as well. What are their concerns? What are they doing? What are the issues that they're facing? Is also I kind of put importance on as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, here we don't have temps very often, but interns or temps or whatever, if we do, we put them through the Dale Carnegie course. Don't pay, we pay. And we put them through the course for the simple reason that that is a core fundamental part of our philosophy about how we treat each other, how we communicate with each other, and what we stand for and our beliefs and values. And you're trying to harmonize that across the board with everybody. So if you're only here for a short period of time, you're an intern or whatever, you understand how we work as an organization. You understand what's in, what's out. And that, I find anyway, for the extra cost of putting someone on a course, the payback is immense. So I understand what you're talking about. In terms of culture now, you're starting an industry. That's one thing. You're starting a company. That's another. So what was the thinking about what sort of culture do we want to have here in this company in Japan? And what sort of culture do we want to set as a standard for the industry? What was your thinking about that?
Well, I wanted the company to be, we are a grading authentication company. So I had the choice of, do we want to be seen as an extension of a hobby shop, or do we want to go a little bit one bar above and be seen more of a level of valuers, like a jewelry valuer?
Okay, all right, yep.
But I wasn't thinking of going up to like a banker or, but the image, and that's also how do we want to portray ourselves? Was an important. The image building was a kind of a part that I put in. So right now in the office, I request all staff, all male staff to wear a collar. So polo shirt is fine.
No t-shirts.
Yeah, no t-shirts or tank tops. But
hoodies.
Hoodies we accept because in the US they wear hoodies, but only hoodies with a collector's or PSA logo on it.
So it's a firm hoodie.
Yeah. So that's acceptable. So important in Japan. I think it's important that if a customer comes in, if he's wearing casual, then it's okay to wear at least wear a collar. But if it's if it's a banker coming in and he's going to be wearing a tie, I tell my staff, you wear a tie. Try to adjust with who you're meeting. And that is important in Japan because
Japan loves uniforms.
Yeah.
This is a country of uniforms. It's like, uniforms for everything here. It's perfect.
But it's also I feel it's a sign of a respect to the others as well. Like, you invite someone to the office and you're wearing a suit, but he comes in with a very rough clothing. Doesn't give a good image of that person's company. And so for me, and especially we are a startup, we want to try to bring an image to this industry. So how you dress is important. So like today, I wore a tie because this is for my sign of respect to yourself. I could have wore shorts and t-shirt, and for you it might be okay. But for me, I think in Japan, you have to try to adjust with who you're meeting as a sign of respect. And I think that's important.
Also, we are all very quick to make judgments about people on first impression. And first impression, for the most part, is visual rather than oral after they start to speak. But if they walk in the door, how they hold themselves, how they dress, how everything matches up, style, etc. We're getting a lot of feedback from that person. We're making judgments about that person. Then we correct the judgment against what we think that person represents by when we speak with them and how they talk and how they, and we know that in countries like Australia, America, England, accent, it makes a big difference in terms of someone who's got a very strong accent, because often it relates to education, and therefore you're making assumptions. Someone's got an Oxbridge accent, for example, well, they must be well educated because they speak in that certain style, right? So again, impression is important. Yes. So how you appear, and if it's a certain person coming in, then you want to look the part, right? So that makes sense.
And that's why I think like bankers and legal firms, they require their employees to wear a suit, because I think wearing a suit provides comfort and trust to their clients.
Yep.
And that's what I want, especially if customers are sending in expensive cards. I want them to feel that they're comfortable and willing.
If I've got my $5 million US card and I want it valued, and I got someone dressed very sloppily or inappropriately from my point of view, am I going to be confident about the valuation of this card's going to be correct? Are they going to break my card, destroy my card, lose my money? I mean, I can imagine there's a lot of things going on.
The person they're handing over their card to, because that's the person they're seeing, and that's their person that they're talking to.
Let me guess. When they hand the card over, there's a tray and gloves, and they don't physically take it in the hand. Actually, they put it on the tray, and then they take, like, when you go, I got my glasses done recently. I broke the joint. And that was a big pain and expensive. But same thing. They take my glasses off. They put them in a little tray. It's all, they've got gloves on. There's that Japanese sensitivity, isn't there, about how things are treated, and to be seen how it's treated too. So how you dress also, I guess, is part of that, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's important for I think people coming from overseas to understand.
Especially a casual country like Australia, right?
Depends on the industry as well, what industry you're going to be going into. But it's always, if you're not sure whether you should wear casual or wear a suit, and if you're not sure,
dress up.
Don't
dress down. Dress up.
That's better. Yes.
Yeah. And Tony, if someone was going to ask you your opinion, hey, Tony, you've been in Japan 45 years, you're raised here, educated outside of Japan, worked around the world. I'm being sent to Japan to run my organization, but I don't speak Japanese. I don't know about Japan. How can I be successful? What advice would you give that person?
Well, of course, if you're studying Japanese, I mean, that's great, but not all people can learn the language. So one thing that I find very important is try to remember just a few words is fine. Just be able to say hello or good evening or itadakimasu or 失礼し excuse me. Just a few keywords, maybe just 10 keywords. Just learn those. I think that will get you a long way.
Keywords like domo.
Domo.
One of those Swiss Army knife words that covers so many. Yoroshiku is another one. Domo, yoroshiku, fantastic words that cover all sorts of situations.
Better if it's like domo arigatou gozaimasu, would be nice.
Better, of course.
Yeah, but if you're taking for like a dinner, if you could say itadakimasu and gochizou-sama, just those two words, if you could say at dinner.
Itadakimasu, I'm going to start, thank you. Gochizou-sama, thank you very much. I've eaten the meal, yes, very polite.
Those are two important things. The other thing as well is one thing I would probably advise is use the JETRO office.
If you're doing a startup, you mean?
If you're a startup, or
companies already established,
even
someone in.
Even established.
Oh, really? Okay.
Even established.
Where does JETRO fit into that then?
They have like free seminars on Japanese kind of business etiquette,
right?
Or on certain ways of starting businesses. Will also give some ideas of people who are new to Japan.
Yep.
And they have cultural sessions as well. So if you can register at JETRO to try to attend those, I think that would be very helpful. But for those who are coming new, if someone's saying, I'm starting up new, I'd say, because that's how I did too. When I started, I actually had the parent office register JETRO. And once I had registered,
Right.
you get 50, they give you office for 50 days free.
Wow. Nice.
And if you don't use it every day, you can actually put
Extend
it
the
back.
time.
Yeah,
50 usage days.
50 usage days.
Not calendar days.
That's right.
Wow.
And if you want to hire more, you have to pay, but they also allow you to have 50 more usage days as well.
Wow.
So, and also they've got a huge library and help you understand things like what is the local tax, the local employment rules, and which some things I didn't quite understand. And also they have free advice as well. So
Great.
that's something that I would advise someone coming in to try JETRO Office as well. The other thing that I didn't mention so far here for someone coming here is there's some nuances, like at meetings. Should I say, in Western culture, people are more open, they're direct in their statements at meetings. Assertive, yes, that's right. And also decisions are made
in the meeting.
At the meeting, and they are various stakeholders, and a general consensus is decided, and that's how they go ahead. In Japan, I find there's nuances in meetings. It's not spoken, but it's in the atmosphere, and sometimes you need to read between the lines.
Read the air in the meeting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Who's actually not on board with this?
Yeah.
They might be saying anything, but they're actually not going to be helpful when we get to execution time.
And people who can't read the atmosphere are called KY ningen, KY people. There's a people say kuki yomenai person.
KY people. Yes,
KY
that's
people.
Right. Yeah.
So you don't want to become a KY person.
Yeah.
So that's something. But as a foreigner, they would kind of understand that. But still, it's if you can try to understand the atmosphere, read between the lines, that's kind of important here. And also be aware that there is a consensus building that happens in the decision making here.
The nemashi, you mean?
Nemashi.
Building the groundwork for the meeting decision.
Yeah. So decision takes time. What I find the difference between West and US biggest projects. Project decisions are made quick in the West. But when the project runs, it takes a long time because there's always adjustments, fixing, something doesn't go wrong. And
Wasn't
it takes
enough planning.
That's right. But in Japan, what I found was there's a lot of consensus building and planning that takes place in the decision-making process.
And also a lot of anticipation of problems which may come up.
Yeah.
And dealing with those in the planning process as opposed to dealing with them in the execution process after you started, right?
And so at the end, there's almost like a unanimous decision if it goes ahead. And once the unanimous decision made, it then is brought up to it's a hierarchical type of structure, whereas Western is more flat.
Yes.
So in Japan, it's more hierarchical, and then brought up to the president, and president signs it. So person coming over here, if they want to start up a new business with someone or a joint venture, just be prepared that it takes quite a long time for that to happen. Be patient, should I say. The other thing is, even if you don't understand language, I find really, really important in Japan is try to remember the person's name and the title. Title
so
and
what's
name.
The title? Why the title?
The title is important because then you know who to ask what questions to.
Right.
Who to address in the meeting.
Right.
Or who you should be speaking to.
Right.
So if you're the company president, then maybe you should be speaking to the other opponent company president. If you are a new manager and you're with a president, you might want to feel like you should be speaking with a manager, for example, direct the questions. Just trying to understand what position you're in the meeting is also quite important.
And also, if you are going to a meeting, for example, say you're the president of the company or the managing director of the company, and you decide to attend the meeting, as soon as the other side knows that you're coming, then their managing director will come. maybe perhaps normally they wouldn't turn up, but they know you're going to be there, so they will try and match. So and the same for the opposite way around.
Point.
If you know they're sending someone high up the totem pole, then you'll try and match that as well. So everyone feels there's a harmony there. That's also respect, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Maybe another thing I haven't mentioned is apology.
You actually brought a sample of an apology. Can you find that?
Yeah.
You got this sample there?
I would like to just mention.
You will set it up and then show us what you're talking about. People will need to know what this looks like.
Yeah. What I want to mention is that I think in the Western world, showing sign of apology is showing sign of weakness.
Yep.
And
the lawyers don't like it.
Yeah.
Litigious cultures don't like to admit guilt or wrongdoing.
And so there's the culture of not admitting guilt.
Mm-hmm.
In Japan, should I say, in a way, that also exists in Japan. In my experience. Don't assume that when the Japanese apologize, they're not this is again reading the lines, but they're not apologizing. Most of the cases, they're not apologizing for the guilt. They're apologizing for the inconvenience that has caused.
Yes.
So many people
see that all the time on TV, right? When some big shacho president with cameras are going and they talk about, apologize for the inconvenience we've caused. We're not apologizing for the fact that our product had a big major defect in it. We didn't follow the safety standards. We apologize for the confusion we've created. It's built into the culture, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah. Of course, there are people who, serious times you will apologize for a defect. But in most cases, like for example, my customer service also, we apologize, firstly, the inconvenience caused by certain occurrence. So that is important in Japan to apologize to the customers if there's any inconvenience caused the customer. And here I brought, and this is kind of very interesting.
Let's get this in the shot here. This is called harakiri. Tell us about this.
This is called seppuku monaka. And seppuku monaka is...
Monaka being a sweet.
Is a Japanese sweet.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which sticks to the top of your mouth, I've always found, when you eat it. But
anyway. And the sweet is, it looks like it's the stomach is harakiri, cut open.
Okay.
You see. But in Japan, when actually, we actually use this as well. Because I've had an example of case where one of the vendors, we was very unhappy with an action we taken. So I, as the company president, had to go and apologize to the president of this other vendor. And when I went, I brought this seppuku monaka, because this is harakiri. And in Japan, in the old samurai days, when you make a mistake, you actually have to
commit ritual suicide.
Commit suicide to show that this is how serious you are. And I'm not going to do harakiri, but the next best thing I can do is bring this seppuku monaka to them. And actually, this is quite good because it actually, it also reduces the tension too.
Well, the thing is, what I find amazing is, there's been a problem. Okay, so we're going to take something, but they've actually come out with a branded product specifically for the occasion where you're apologizing, and they call it harakiri on the pack. That's incredible.
This is actually this is an old store, so this is not a new one. But this is this is a historical store, and they happen to use this seppuku monaka for a historical event. But companies use this as a gift. So
what you're saying is the company itself never manufactured or branded for that particular purpose.
That's correct.
People seized on the thing.
That's right.
As this could be a nice play on words, play on themes here. And we'll actually, by showing the client this particular product, it's really emphasizing our apology that we're really understanding, and we're not going to kill ourselves, but we really empathizing with the problems we've caused for you. We're serious, and here's our proof of it. Interesting.
One other thing is coming to Japan, you need to understand the culture and tradition, and also kind of understand that, because if you don't understand, sometimes it can cause friction without knowing that you're causing friction.
I'm sure I've done that quite a lot in my career here over the years.
So gift giving is kind of a big thing. So if you're coming over to Japan for the first time, I would suggest bring some kind of chocolates or sweets to give out to the local staff to say, hello, I'm Mike from US. Nice to meet you. These are some things I just brought over. Please have some. That is taken positively here. And that kind of is sometimes could be an icebreaker as well. So gift giving, and that's not just to the staff, but also customers as well. If you're going to a new customer, it'd be also nice to bring some gift to them. Will also help the business relationship as well. And also Japan has gift giving season as well.
Yes.
So if you have a very important customer, sometimes you might want to use the opportunity of this gift giving season. I think it was sometime like August, for example, to use that opportunity to use that Japanese culture in building the relationship. So gift giving is also a big part in Japan as well.
It is.
The other thing sorry, I've got so many things to mention.
Just keep going. You're doing a great job.
The other thing I might, by experience, as a word of caution, is that unless you're invited over to a Japanese family's home for dinner or lunch, unless you're invited for the first time and you're doing kind of a payback, saying, okay, come to my home, I would say, if you're not, don't invite, I would just have second thoughts about inviting your employee to your home. Because in Japan, it's not a custom to invite people to homes because the homes are very small and sometimes families are very embarrassed to show inside of their home because of they're small. So a lot of Japanese, they have business or family gatherings or social gatherings in restaurants.
Outside.
So if you're new to Japan and you say, okay, I like to invite my best employee to my home just to get to know him, the employee may come to know him, but then he will be pressured and feel
to
difficult to say,
which you can't really do
and
at the same level.
And then he will be confused, saying, should I invite him to my home or should I invite him to a restaurant? But if I invite him to a restaurant, will he feel? And actually, there was I saw an employee in a company before where he was really kind of worried and didn't know what to do. But I told him, like, I think, he'll understand, just take him to a restaurant, but he'll understand. But just understand that sometimes you might cause tension and stress to an employee without knowing. Just that's one thing I just kind of felt as well.
That's a good point.
Yep.
So what would be your definition of leadership, Tony?
Definition of leadership, I would define leadership as the ability to inspire, influence, and also guide towards common goal and vision. I think important thing is to do that, to set a direction, also empower and motivate your individuals and team, and also facilitate collaboration and teamwork. The effective leadership, effective leadership, I find has kind of 5 things that one needs to. Maybe 6 things I can think of that one needs to think about. One is you need to have a vision to have leadership. Integrity, very important. Empathy is important. Adaptability, communication, and strategic thinking. If you actually think about those things, I think you won't go wrong too much. I think also a leader is not just trying to kind of achieve results, but I think it's also, as I mentioned during this talk, I think it's important about nurturing talent, and also building trust is also important, and also fostering a positive organization culture is important. Ultimately, I think leadership is about bringing out the best in of a person, of an organization, and trying to achieve a common objective. And also maybe if I add in as well is bringing meaningful change. I would bring in as well.
There's 50,000 things there. Let's boil it down to one simple statement. What would it be?
That would be like bringing out the best in the team.
Okay,
great. An individual. That is the most important.
Well, Tony, you will take the prize as my guest on this podcast for having the best props ever we've ever had in the podcast. So thank you for bringing this, because I didn't really know much about this industry in Japan or America, because maybe Americans know more about than I do. But it's great to actually get an idea of what is going on here and understand because you've created an industry as well as you said, a company. So we've learned a lot today about leadership, but also about the collecting industry. So thank you.
Thank you. And I'm actually, this is just Japan, and I'm also trying to build up an industry in Asia as well.
We're going to branch out.
That's right. So I'm also looking on towards other countries as well. Again, which brings into culture of other countries as well, which I need to think about.
Well, if anyone out there is thinking about branching out into the collection area for these sorts of things, you're the man they need to contact. So, okay, everyone, talk to Tony if you want to open up this organization in the rest of Asia. So, thank you again. Please join us for our next episode of Japan's top business interviews.